Good day and welcome to Reclaiming Timeless Ways with the Mike Traster and me, Simon Fuller. The and me. Here we go for another episode, and
Oh, that reminds me of a book, I Am Thou by Martin Buber.
you're 2 weeks too late. We did the 10 books
Wrong.
Last time.
Sorry.
Moving on. That's right.
Gone.
Our episode today is what, Mike?
What's in a conversation?
What isn't a conversation? Words?
Yeah, that's enough.
Done. End of story. And scene cut.
We're finished.
Quickest show yet.
That was it. So, you're standing there, like I'm standing there outside the building. This guy comes walking, kind of a heavy-set guy with a beard. He's just looking around, taking pictures. And I looked at him, he's got a nice-looking Canon camera. And I said, is that film or, computer? He goes, no, it's a newer one. I said, oh, do you like them both? He goes, yeah, I do. But, and then he told me, see, I like the graininess of the film. And then I like all the tricks you can do with the...
Digital stuff, yeah.
Right, digital, thank you. So I said, oh, okay. So we talked some more, and he's kind of starting his little business. It sounds like it's slow, but maybe he's good. I don't know. Anyway, it was a nice conversation. But what happened was he walked by, and that's coincidence, and I saw something that caught my eye, and I just made a comment and a question. So obviously he likes the camera, it's attached to it and using it, so it's a part of him, and that opened up a door.
Right.
Right? And I think because we're so encapsulated, we don't do enough of that.
Yeah.
So we don't converse. And he was a happy communicator. He was happy to communicate. And then from that, we also talked about his cigarette smoking and,
Another topic of conversation.
Right.
Well, yeah, what's in a conversation? Well, some sort of a common interest or point or topic. I mean, that's what you're saying, something we can both bring something to the table on, right?
Right. And you see you share back and forth.
Right.
Right, yeah, and it brings up new side
Correct.
ideas. Right. If you express interest in someone in a constructive way, what you're actually doing is finding something that's core to the essence of their being, right? You're tugging on that string and going, "Oh, what is this that makes you tick?"
Yeah.
How come that gives you some satisfaction or
Right.
productivity or joy, or are you helping somebody in some way?
Right.
You know.
Then it turns to, well, my mother or my father did this, and so I grew up around it. Oh, really? Tell me about them. Well, they this, and this, and before you know it, poof.
Yeah.
You
I
know
told him
somebody.
about a camera I had. Exactly. That's why you do what you do so well, because you're able to do that. So that was it. I could probably spend an hour listening to you tell me about microphones, literally.
You probably know even more.
I probably know a lot less.
I don't know.
I think I know about omni and unidirectional and about a buffer for getting rid of wind noise.
Like a windscreen. And the interesting
Windscreen,
thing
thank
is, the interesting thing about my career in radio, if you probably gathered that from other episodes, is, what really pulled me in, Mike, so see, now we're off on a conversation,
Right.
was not per se the audio component. So
Okay.
my dad and a lot of people got into radio because they wanted to, in my dad's case, be a sports announcer, or you want to be that news person delivering the news, which once upon a time I think was a bigger deal. There's a little more credibility, but that's a whole different topic there. Or the morning jock, or that entertaining host. I grew up around the industry, but never really had a drive for that part. All the history, the back end, the what makes that tick per se. But I was exposed to sales, which
Right.
sales, selling air. I enjoyed just the people piece of it, and I enjoyed problem solving. So, oh, Mike, you own XYZ transmissions. Tell me a little bit about that.
Right.
Okay, well, here's what I do. How does that benefit me? Okay, here's how it benefits. Do people know that? Well, some do, but really I'm trying to let these people know that this little additive or this preventative maintenance can do this for them. Okay, well, maybe I can come up with a commercial to help explain that, and maybe I can come up with a campaign that will make sense for you to tell that to people based on what revenue is generated, what the commercials cost, and the piece of the pie that, or the piece of the information that you're getting out there. And I enjoyed that. And so it's funny when somebody will talk about, hey, do you want to come MC this? Do you want to do this event? Do you want to do that event? Not really. I am not the true sense of what a radio person is.
Okay.
And that got me off topic because, on a microphone, I'm much less, I know I need quality microphones
Right.
at my radio station.
Right, absolutely.
But there's Noel and Dick Keene and some other people that I rely on to figure that. I really have never cared enough to dial deep into what makes this a little bit better than this, than a little bit better than that. Maybe should, but I guess I've got some faith in those people. My specialty would more or less be on the other end. So that stuff does interest me.
So that
the
was
people
a
piece.
perfect segue. So my comment, my natural inclination right now is to say, so you're good at delegating.
In that respect, yeah.
That's an important part of how you run your world, is
Yeah,
to
right,
delegate.
right.
You know when you don't want to or need to be an expert, because that requires you to divert your time and attention away from a more shotgun approach to other things.
And having good people is key. I don't care who you are, where you're at.
So let me ask you a question on these, and I always thought microphones were really cool. I always liked them. If you don't bounce it off the floor or get it wet, how long should it last?
Great question, Mike. I would venture a guess. I'm just trying to think. I mean, our main studio mic, I think we've had that mic, Mike, as long as I've been at this radio station, which is going on now 22 years. Our main studio and our production mic.
So how much longer would an indoor, doesn't ever go anywhere mic last than one that gets packed and
Oh, I'm sure.
2 or 3 times longer?
I would venture to guess
Okay.
that, yes.
So vibration and exposure to wind and moisture.
Sure, absolutely,
Would cut it at least in half.
absolutely.
And maybe the big desk mic costs more to begin with?
Correct. It's a higher quality mic.
All right. So this is a normal, see, this is a normal segue. I didn't plan any of this, right? So my next question is, do they make them rechargeable?
Sure they do.
Oh, okay.
Sure they do.
I hoped they did, but I didn't know it.
And wireless equipment. Now, in most studio situations, you're not going to go that route, but absolutely folks out and about in the world of news reporting, they're going to probably have some of that wireless
So
equipment.
without underselling or overselling this, if there was a 0 to 10 scale on durability and quality, where would these be?
Probably somewhere in the middle,
Okay. So
4 or
good.
5.
Okay, so they're
You know-
good, they're durable, but they're not a Rolls Royce.
And you're correct. I know you can spend a lot more than we did on these.
Right.
Put it that way. And not always is more equal to direct quality, but oftentimes there is a correlation in price and quality.
I was watching, I was talking to a friend of mine years ago, here's a segue, about reliability, right? She had this, the high-end BMW, which was like 15, 20 years ago, $80,000 car.
Wow.
Yeah, she got rid of it. And she got a Crown Vic Ford.
Yeah.
I said, why? She said, it's just as good and it's like a fraction of the price to maintain.
Exactly.
And more durable.
Right.
And I was like, oh, really? And so I did a lot of research on that, and yeah, she had found, she was a good researcher, very smart, clever with her money. And she found like one of the most durable cars on the face of the earth. What do they call it? the Panther platform. That's what Ford Motor Company calls with the big Fords that were all
Okay.
the cop cars. It was like one of the most durable cars ever built, period. And you're like, oh. When you actually hear mechanics have enough guts to belly up to the table and say it that clearly, you're
Yeah.
like, that's impressive,
Right.
you know? So durability, microphone durability, car.
Yeah.
That's all part of a normal conversation,
Right.
normal segues.
Right.
So if you were going to replace these, how would you do that? And these would then be backups, I'm assuming, right?
Yeah. And, well, I'll tell you, the first thing I'd do is I'd reach out to my engineer, Dick Keene. I'd say, what would you suggest? And what I love
Okay.
about him
Right, right.
is he's always, not always, often, never say never, never say always.
Yeah.
But oftentimes he knows where I budgetarily want to be, but he'll
Right.
always let me know
Sure.
what he would do.
Okay.
And oftentimes that's a little more, and then we figure it out from there. And I guess I put a lot of faith in him. And Noel, you know, so that's the first thing. And I'd probably do a little research myself. I would look at online reviews. I would look at other folks in the industry. Like when you're talking about that vehicle analogy, I don't want just any old, you know, Tom, Dick, or Harry's opinion. I want opinions of people who know something.
Right.
And when you go online, you can find a whole lot of both.
So I got a question for you. And it's another segue, but it's about sound quality. I've read a couple times that the old technology, the old tape recorders, the good ones, like good reel-to-reels and good phonographs, better sound quality than digital. There's something missing in the digital. What do you know about that?
I have not heard such a thing. I guess I wouldn't believe that without looking it up.
Okay.
I'm always amazed at how often I can go up to a client nowadays with a phone and get them. And as long as I'm in a room that's relatively, the sound quality, like this is a bigger room, you
Right.
might even hear a little more echo in here. You find a smaller closet-sized room,
Right.
carpeted, things like that, not wind and all that. A cell phone digital recording is pretty high quality and in a WAV format. So I guess I don't know, Mike, that I would be.
So you
any
think I'm
help.
lying?
Well, I'm obviously you heard it or read it,
Mike's full of shit.
but I guess I would be hard pressed to believe it without digging into that.
Okay, all right. But so one of the qualities, going back to the basic idea of a conversation, is I have to get off the pedestal of knowing and get on the pedestal or the quiet chair of asking.
Sure.
I have to relinquish the role of I'm in the know, because I'm not.
Right.
I don't know much about that, but you do. So I would defer to your knowledge and say, well, educate me, A, because I'm chronically curious about everything,
Yeah.
and B, because maybe one day I'll find a treasure in a junk store and go,
Right.
oh, look at that.
Yeah.
You know, yeah. Yeah.
He's learning I know less than he thought I knew.
What's that?
I said he's learning that I knew less than he thought I knew.
Yeah, but he still knows more than me, so. It's like, I'm drowning and he knows how to swim.
But I think that is an important piece of conversation. My wife is quite good, and a piece of that that's not necessarily taught is she actually does care. Like you said, chronically curious.
Right,
Like she wants
Yeah.
to know, she wants to hear, she wants to understand. It's hard to have a conversation if you have no give a craps about anything.
no, yeah, if you don't have any passion in your blood, you can't talk to anybody about anything.
Or if you don't really care about anybody but yourself sometimes,
Sure.
you know.
Right.
I think the biggest piece of a conversation is, and I've heard this before, because I can, believe it or not, Mike, I've been told, quiet, listen a little more. 2 ears, 1 mouth, use them in that proportion. That's been told to me a time or
You're
two.
better at that than I am.
And that I feel like is learned, because I'm really not as good as you think. I'm going
He-
to tell you that.
He acknowledged that that was true.
I struggle often with that. Just ask my wife. I'll get her on a special episode.
Well, you're a good communicator. You're a fine communicator. That's a great natural ability, you know.
That's mom and dad both.
Wow.
I always was kidding. My mom, No kidding, Mike, if you want somebody who really, and she, even though this was Dad's business, he should have been better. My mother still, not had, has, such a genuine care and curiosity, kind of like you were saying. It was almost embarrassing as a kid, because every time we would go anywhere, I remember one time in a grocery store line, she's waiting, there's somebody ahead of her, and then one more getting checked out, so she's the third of 3 people in line.
Right.
And so there's this gal, and she doesn't know her, mind you,
Right.
and she starts striking up a conversation about feminine products that were in her cart. And I'm just like, and before you know
I
it,
want to disappear.
before you know it, by the end of that conversation, there's some common thread or a relative
Right.
of a relative of a relative. Like
Right.
her ability to go from perfect stranger to somehow finding a tie, a connection
Right.
in a matter of 10, 15 minutes was uncanny. It was incredible. And she still does that. And half of it is just she really does care about everybody, about everything.
It's a wonderful trait,
Yeah.
and so, and then I guess the next segue is, and what the fuck, if you'll excuse my French, happened to that? Do we have to cut that out?
Down to 25 subscribers.
He's gonna erase that word. What the?
Right. We'll bleep him. We'll bring him down. We'll let the laughing stay in, so you kind of know what happened. But I'll bring the audio down, so you know what that was.
Just hang up. We need a sign that says bleep.
It goes back to the beginning of this whole show idea and the core. And you talked about the backhanded hello. People. Because I catch myself sometimes doing this, and you help remind me by doing the show "Knock It Off, Simon."
No.
Sort of a figurative slap to yourself. And it is an excuse, but I'm still going to say, because I think a lot of people have this excuse, and maybe there's some truth to it, but we have control over it, and that is, we get so busy or caught up in what we think is important or needs to get done in our day that we forget about really what does matter.
Right.
And in doing so, we do sometimes bypass people, moments, opportunities, relationships, that, why? Oh, because you had to get that done for work?
Right.
Prioritizing all that, so I think the idea or the excuse of just being too busy for one another, it's a crap excuse, but I think a lot of people feel that way, and so we need to knock it off. Take that time, like you said, you were with a guy outside, take a minute. You were supposed to be in here.
Right.
Knew you were coming in here, but you took 5 or 10 minutes to just
did.
engage and say hello and
Yeah.
how you doing, and then you learned a little something about one another, and then off you go.
He wanted to come in and photograph us, and I said, "You can't do that." And he's like, "Why?" And I said, "Well, I'm not used to it, for one." He goes, "I wouldn't bother you." I said, "It would distract our flow."
Yeah,
And it is a private process.
yeah.
So he said, "Okay, well, maybe sometime in the future." Maybe.
But the reality is you took that 10 minutes, and you didn't have that necessarily that you were planning on giving, but you did.
Yeah.
We can all do a little more of that. There's no question. What happened to that? Well, that's what happened to
Well,
it.
one thing, and this is, of course, another segue, without which conversations are dead. It's like trying to swim in cured cement. You can't, right? So the old world doctor, mechanic, farmer, they talked to each other about solutions. I think now everything is in a program,
Yeah.
right? So we've eliminated our community connectedness. So we lose the habit of saying, "Hey, what the hell do you know about the way that these O-rings stick inside of a transmission? Have you figured out anything to prevent that?" Guy goes, "As a matter of fact, right, it's related to too much high temperature. It breaks down the rubber or whatever it is, So people, I think, were more experientially grounded, and now they're grounded in programs, right? They're prefabricated and somewhat closed,
Yeah.
So because of that, we sort of we have a goal, and we're in a tunnel. We're going from here to there to do that and come back. And everything else is in the way.
Yeah, right.
And that's being programmed, as we said earlier, I said, being programmed to be kind of dumb,
So let me ask you this, Mike.
please.
You always bring up, I think, a very important piece of every show in little steps, right?
Right.
So let me ask you this. If you were to give a goal, a challenge, hey, here's what I would like you to try.
Right,
So assuming a lot of us walk like that,
right.
and I think a lot of us do, I agree with that. Should I try to strike up 1 10-minute conversation this next week? 2? What do you think's a reasonable small step, next step, to try to maybe deprogram some of that?
One or
Engage
two. 1 or 2 would be fantastic.
a week?
Yeah.
And then maybe bump
absolutely.
it up from there.
Yeah,
I think that if we did more of that, we would start liking it and doing it without even having to think about
I
purposefully trying to engage.
now, I don't do this, but I carry this little $1 notebook.
Yep.
I've got about a dozen of them. I gave you a couple.
Yep.
Right? So what I write about is new ideas, right? All kinds of new, or ideas I want to share. Like here's a list of herbs. So if conversing is new to me to some degree, because I've been trained to be in the bubble,
Yeah.
right? Maybe I can write, so maybe the person gives me their number, but I don't write it down in the context. When I come back and find that number 6 months from now, I will not remember who they were.
Yeah.
But if I write down, I spoke to Billy, and we were at Baumgar's, right? And we talked about
Fishing.
fishing. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, okay. And, Billy Baumgar's fishing and outboard motors, right?
I knew you'd bring it back to a motor. You're a motor guy.
I am, to some degree. I am, because they help us
Right?
have independence,
Right, right.
right? Then when I look at that number, I'm not gonna go, who the hell is this?
And look
I'm
it
gonna
up.
go, oh, okay, I remember that.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
And when I don't do that, the number loses meaning and eventually I just throw it out,
Yeah.
you know? So I think having I like nice pens. So if I have a little dollar notebook and they're $1.25, so I can write down some ideas. And then maybe I can transfer them into a different book as
Yeah.
I want. And so the information that was vivid and alive remains alive and useful.
Right.
And writing down that thing about talking to Billy about boats and fishing and motors took 15 seconds.
Right.
So it didn't really,
And if you don't, you can type it in your phone. I have little notes in here. I've got some recipes, some things. There's a lot of easy ways to do it.
right,
And everybody, again, there I go again. Most people have this with them most of the time.
right. Now, not all of us are as skillful as you are.
I'm going to teach you, Mike, how to take some notes in there.
That would be appreciated.
All right, well, as you heard throughout this episode, conversation, pretty simple, right? Yep. We gave some examples. Mike led me down that conversation path. We found some topic. And did you see how it spun? Now the challenge is try it once, maybe twice this week with somebody you don't know or you don't know well.
If I may add,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but I'm
No.
interrupting.
No, you're
please.
good.
Okay. If you really ask this one question, this as an experiential overlay, in other words, how does this relate to that? If you think about your church, right? Ooh, sacred topic, forbidden topic. Let's erase the forbidden for a moment. You think about your church, your workplace, your neighborhood, a store that you go to, and you ask yourself, what pisses you off about those places? The school where your kid goes to learn, or where you go to learn. No communication,
Yeah.
or no real communication. You ever go into a doctor's office and the front desk person doesn't say the doctor, she says doctor, it's like saying God.
Right.
That person is a brick wall. You cannot communicate with them. They are communication proofed. They are interactive cement, right? So every time we get this tight feeling in our gut, and then we go, oh, screw it, there's nothing I can do about it, it's because we want to have some satisfaction or some connectedness or get an answer that helps us.
The core of this show, Mike, you have more conversations like that, 1 to 2 a week, and keep it going. Be amazed at what that does to relationship and people.
Right.
And reclaiming, as you would say, the timeless ways.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It really is the core of a lot of it.
I give you the pleasure of slamming it on the table.
And that's a wrap.
Dead conversation.
Enjoy the rest of your day, and thank you for joining us for Reclaiming Timeless Ways.
Take care.